Welcome to the observation deck. I am so glad you've decided to settle in with me today. Take a moment to adjust your surroundings, breathe deeply, and let's look out together at a specific kind of frustration that I suspect many of us have carried, like a heavy, invisible weight for a long time. I want to start by asking you to notice a very common yet deeply painful phenomenon. Have you ever looked at a project, a skill, or even the entire trajectory of your own career, and realized that despite months, maybe even years of what society calls grinding, you are exactly where you were a year ago? You've put in the hours. You followed that famous 10,000-hour rule we've all been sold by every success book on the shelf. But when you look at the results, you feel stagnant. It's a heavy, hollow sensation, isn't it? You see others making these effortless, non-linear leaps, while you are just busy. From the observation deck, we see a disturbing reality. Most of us aren't actually practicing. We are just repeating our own mistakes with higher and higher intensity. We call it grit or dedication. I call it running on a treadmill that isn't connected to the floor. You are burning calories. You are sweating and you are exhausted, but you haven't moved an inch toward a new destination. We have been taught to value the grind, but we've forgotten to observe the growth. I lived in this trap of effort for a very long time. I remember back in my early days of research and intense study, I was convinced that the answer to every problem was simply more. More hours, more caffeine, more sheer brute force. I would stay in the library until the janitors turned the lights out, rewriting my notes, until my hand literally cramped into a claw. I convinced myself that this suffering was the price of admission for a better life. I thought if I didn't feel exhausted at the end of the day, I wasn't doing it right. But the harder I pushed, the more I realized I was just memorizing sounds without ever hearing the music. I was busy, but I wasn't evolving. I was tired, but I was stagnant. It felt like I was trying to fill a bucket with a massive hole in the bottom. No matter how fast I poured, no matter how much water I hauled, the bucket remained empty. Our past conflicts are almost always a result of measuring our worth by the ticking of the clock rather than the clarity of our focus. We were using the wrong metrics to judge our progress. Why does this happen to so many smart, capable people? The root cause is a biological glitch we call the illusion of competence. You see, your brain is designed by evolution to be remarkably efficient, which is really just a polite way of saying it is biologically lazy. It wants to conserve energy at all costs. Once you repeat a task even a few times, your brain recognizes the shape of the input. It creates a shortcut. The friction disappears and you mistake this lack of friction for mastery. You feel like you're getting better because it feels smoother. But in the world of cognitive science, we know upon seeing heart-piercing truth, if there is no friction, there is no learning. Most of us spend our lives in the easy zone, deepening the old ruts in our neural pathways, instead of building new ones. We are overlearning the 80 we already know, while unconsciously, and often fearfully avoiding the difficult 20 that actually leads to a breakthrough. So let's look at what we've seen so far. Brute force is a low-resolution strategy that ignores how the brain actually works. Familiarity is a trap, that tricking you into thinking you've mastered what you've only memorized. And busyness is often just a mask for a lack of direction. We don't need more hours, we need more information density within those hours. How do we move past this? If we look at the high-leverage habits of true masters, those who achieve in 1 hour what takes others 10, we find a different kind of logic. They stop looking at the 10,000-hour finish line and start looking at the 3 layers of refinement. The first layer is what we call absolute imitation. This is where the ego usually gets in the way. We want to be creative or original before we've even mastered the basic form of the craft. We try to build the penthouse of the building before the concrete, for the foundation has even been poured. And this stage, your only job is to be a mirror. You don't ask why, and you don't add your own flair. You just do the how, with surgical precision. You are creating the vessel before you try to fill it with your own soul. It's not about doing a lot, it's about doing it exactly right. until the thought is no longer a choice, but a default reflex. The second layer is intentional rupture, or what I call deliberate friction. This is where the real learning happens, but it is also where most people quit because it feels clumsy and slow. In this stage, you intentionally break your own flow. You test the boundaries. You ask, what happens if I change the tempo? What happens if I remove this step? You make the task hard again on purpose, so your brain has to re-engage its high-level processing. You are hunting for the points of failure. If you don't feel slow or slightly frustrated during your practice, you aren't growing, you're just maintaining. You're just dusting the furniture in a room you already live in. The third layer is systemic integration. This is the final evolution, where the skill stops being an action you perform and starts being a reflex you inhabit. You move beyond the clock and the sheer effort of the will. At this level, you achieve a non-linear leap, the kind of breakthrough that 10,000 hours of mindless repetition could never provide. You've traded the self-punishment of the grind for the self-reliance of a stable automated system. Mastery isn't a collection of hours, it's a series of internal transformations. Imitation builds the form, friction builds the intelligence, and integration builds the flow. Without the friction, the hours are just noise. Success is about the density of the information you process, not the duration of the seat time. Ultimately, the diligent fool is someone who stays in the first layer forever. They are afraid of the friction, so they stay in the comfort of familiarity. They think the burn of exhaustion is the same thing as the burn of growth. It isn't. One is the sound of a system breaking down, and the other is the sound of a system upgrading. We need to stop asking ourselves at the end of the day, how many hours did I put in, and start asking, where was the friction today? Where did I allow myself to be a beginner again? If you didn't feel a moment of genuine difficulty, you probably didn't learn anything. You were just performing. The most successful people I observe from this deck are the ones who are lazy with their time but intense with their focus. They might only work for 2 hours, but every single minute of those 2 hours is spent on the uncomfortable edge of their ability. They don't need 10,000 hours. They might only need 1,000, because their information density is 10 times higher than yours. They have learned the ultimate lesson of the observation deck structure frees you while struggle alone just traps you in a cycle of diminishing returns. Take a deep breath. Recognize that your frustration with working hard but seeing no results was just a signal from your system. It wasn't a sign that you aren't talented or that you aren't meant for this. It was just your brain telling you that you were stuck in the repetition trap. You were trying to fill a bucket by pouring more water into it, rather than taking the time to fix the hole in the bottom. Put down the clock. Stop measuring your day by how busy you were or how many items you crossed off a list. Instead, look for the friction in whatever you are doing today. Follow the form, find the difficulty, and then let go of the effort. You aren't behind in your 10,000 hours, you are just waiting for your first genuine breakthrough because you finally stopped running and started looking at the path. If this perspective helped you see your own diligent trap a little more clearly today, I invite you to click the next video and join our community by subscribing to the channel. We are here to keep looking at the hidden mechanics of our lives, one observation at a time, so we can stop struggling against the tide and start flowing with the logic of how we actually work. I'll see you in the next one.